In this video, we're going to go through 5 tips that will be effective for anybody who's ever struggled competing or sparring against somebody larger than themselves. Let's roll the intro and get to the episode. Alright guys, I got the 5 tips for you. Now, be aware that if you are somebody in the gym, let's say you're sparring and you're 120 pounds and you're 5'4", and you're competing against somebody who's 200 pounds and they're 6 foot. I mean, these will help a little bit, but they're not surefire ways that are going to make you win all the time. That's just a massive size disadvantage, and it's very difficult to overcome that. But still, utilizing the tactics that I'm going to share with you today are beneficial. They will be much more beneficial if we're talking about maybe a 5 or 10 pound weight discrepancy, or the same weight and just a small height discrepancy. But either way, these are the tactics that you want to use to fight somebody bigger than yourself. Now, all of these are going to be assuming that we want to maintain distance. We don't want to be within that ideal punch range for the other person. If their arms are this long and they can reach me from here, I either want to be back at this distance, or I want to be really tight where I am firing at my ideal distance. So keeping that in mind, let's move to point number 1. And point number 1 is using fakes to make them freeze. If I'm always telegraphing my entry, I'm bouncing around, I'm here, and I'm always moving forward, and all my opponent has to do on the entry is back up and jab, or stop him with the front kick. It becomes very difficult for this guy to get that entry, to get to that tighter distance. So how do we make that distance entry much easier to make sure we're not getting punched in the head or front kicked on the stomach as we move forward? We make them freeze, and we do that by utilizing our fakes. So instead of just from here bouncing and entering, we throw something first. We twitch our arm, or we pump and we drop our weight, or we do a little shuffle forward. Something that's going to make this guy go, uh-oh, freeze. Or maybe he backs up and punches. When he backs up and punches, there's lots of space. He's always running away from me. So at some point with a whole lot of fakes, he's going to stop backing up and throwing punches. He's going to go, it's not really worth it, or I feel like I'm running too much. So then when he sees the shots and I go here, and he freezes, now I can utilize my entry and get to that ideal distance where I get to throw and he feels jammed. So again, the fake can be pump the arm halfway. It can be shuffle step. It can be pump the shoulder. Any of those are going to be good enough, and you want to utilize them as you're bouncing. Which takes us to point number 2, which is to utilize your footwork. If you are standing in front of your opponent and you're just stationary, you're standing here, you're an easy target. You want to make them miss. So you want to be bouncing around, you want to be moving, you want to be light on your feet, you want to be able to exit quickly, and also when you throw your fakes, be able to explode in. Utilize that footwork, utilize that extra speed. If you're the smaller fighter, you should have better footwork, you should be faster, so that should give you the advantage to move sideways, to make them chase you, to make them miss. Make life difficult for them, make them chase you. They're always trying to find you, and then you're in tight, and then you're gone. Footwork is going to be key for fighting somebody bigger than you. Don't stick to that Muay Thai style where you're just standing and trading shots. Right, tip number 3 is once I make my way from way out here all the way in, I don't want to just throw one shot and then exit. It takes work, it takes footwork, it takes faking, it takes a lot of effort to get to that point where I can throw punches. Once I get there, I'm not throwing one, I'm throwing combos. You've done all the work to enter, you managed to get past maybe that front kick, those punches, you've managed to close the gap. Then you make them pay. So combo up. I know it's scary, especially if the guy is a bigger fighter. If they are substantially 50, 60 pounds more than you, sitting on the inside is not always that much fun. But I'll tell you what, it's better than being on the outside getting picked apart by their long power shots. You crush in against them, you get really tight, and you work the combos, and you put in that footwork as well. So as I'm throwing my combos, I'm utilizing my footwork, and I'm making things very difficult for them. All right, from here, let's assume we're on the back end. We're not moving forward now. They managed to catch us when we were flat-footed. Our footwork wasn't working at that moment. So instead of standing my ground here, letting the bigger guy tee off my guard, I want to utilize slipping and countering. Now what that means is instead of just getting my head off the center line and then coming back up, I want to slip and throw, or I want to slip to the side and throw. And it's the same thing that we're just talking about. We want to make sure we throw combos on that. So if I slip to the side, I evade the shot. Don't hit them once, hit them 2 or 3 or 4 times. Off to the side, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes, instead of just slipping and countering back, I slip and I throw the exact same time. That's very frustrating for the longer fighter. If every time he enters the throw, you tap him in the head. So if you are the shorter fighter, you want to make sure that as you're working everything else we talked about, you're also working your ability to slip to the side and throw back. Slip to the side and throw back. Very, very important for the smaller fighter to work. And finally, guys, one of the last things that we can focus on is, as the smaller fighter, we've got to close that distance, and we want to close it fast. So we need to be explosive. Super explosive on our entry. I'm going to throw a clip up of a fighter, Mike Zambidi, K1 fighter from back in, I want to say like the 2000s, super explosive on his entry. He was so small, he'd be down here and then just boom. And he'd always be so explosive on the way in, landing the shot midway. He wouldn't even wait for his feet to land and then to start throwing. Sometimes he would just throw on the entry. So important to have that explosive entry so that people can't always back up when you throw that attack. When you throw that attack and you're, boom, they're standing here, they go to back up and you're already on them. And a big key to that, your explosive entry, is to stay on your feet and get very explosive off that back foot. We don't want the heel flat to the ground and the leg straight. We want to be bent, disconnect our back heel, and then from there we can pop in super fast and time the punch at the same time. Now guys, there are so many tactics to defeating a taller fighter, a stronger fighter, somebody who just outsizes you. We just went through 5 today. If you want more, you want a more in-depth breakdown, let me know in the comments below. This is just basically my cliff notes on the subject. I could give you guys a whole hour tutorial on this whole thing. We're probably doing this in 5, 6, 7 minutes. And I'm always happy to do a big long video on it. You guys just let me know if you want it. If you guys learned something, you enjoyed the video today, make sure you give it a like. If you haven't, get subscribed. Guys, train hard, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.